Hi, everyone. Welcome to mindfulness exercises and our live meditation for Monday morning or Monday afternoon, Monday evening, depending on where you are. I am Sarah May, and we are live right now on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. So, welcome and thank you so much for joining. Feel free to type in the comments and just say hello or say where you are tuning in from, and we'll get started here in just a moment with a 20-minute meditation or thereabouts. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here and showing up and supporting others in your practice, supporting us in our practice. So, welcome. Yeah. Again, I'm Sarah May, and I am in beautiful southern Spain right now. So I'd love to hear where you guys are turning in from. Tucson, I bet it's nice and warm there also. So hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. Yeah, Barcelona, welcome. Yeah, Fort Myers, Austin. So great to see everybody here. Thank you guys for joining in. Again, we're live on Facebook and LinkedIn and on YouTube. So if I'm replying to a comment that you don't happen to see, then that's why. Yeah, welcome from Brazil, from Portugal, Canada, Clementina from Sudan. It's so great to have people here from all over the world supporting each other in your mindfulness and meditation practice. Yeah, India, Costa Rica, Iran. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Yeah, meditation is a wonderful way for us to start our week. It's Monday wherever we are, although we're all joining from different time zones. And today's meditation is all about noticing and observing and being present with the truth of change. And we will start in just about 1 minute. So find yourself a comfortable place to sit, a comfortable place where you can be relatively quiet, relatively free from distractions. Of course, we're here listening to an online meditation, but maybe there's a way for you to keep this video going while you turn off notifications for a moment. We'll meditate for approximately 20 minutes. Welcome from Turkey, from India, from the UK. Yeah, so many people from Canada. So great to see. So, welcome everyone. And I don't think our meditation this morning needs too much of an introduction. Again, the intention is just to observe change, and we're going to use the breath to do that. So, so welcome, guys. Let's go ahead and get started. You are welcome to close your eyes or just gaze low away from the screen, but do maintain a nice upright posture. Maybe take a nice full deep breath in through the nose. Big sigh out. We might want to do that 2 or 3 more times, or even breathe in, reach the arms up, or otherwise roll the shoulders down and back. And then a nice big breath out just to settle into the posture and let the body knows, okay, something is changing here. We're going to meditate. And let's settle into the seat. So find stability in your seat. Level hips. Are the hips above the knees? If you're in a chair, you might try planting your feet flat on the ground. Place the hands in the lap in a way that just promotes ease in the shoulders. Relax the chin. Soften the jaw. And just breathe in and out through your nose. No need for a special breath. No need to change the breath. Just a natural, easy breath. A patient breath, allowing each breath out to be at least as long as each breath in. And here we are in this space, in this body, present with this breath. And can we allow ourselves to fully be here? And just noting and observing the breath. Our focus is not too tight, but not too loose. Attention is anchored to the breath. The way a ship might be anchored to the ocean floor, we allow for some movement, and yet that anchor holds us still. There's a balance there. And today's intention is to use this breath observation, attention to the breath, to notice and observe the truth of change. So notice the cyclical nature of breath. At some point, an inhale breath begins. It lasts for a while, and then that inhale at some point is complete. And then an exhale breath begins, and it lasts for a while, and then that exhale breath feels complete. And this process repeats itself over and over again. So with an open, kind curiosity, What do you notice about when one breath starts, when one breath ends? Does one breath seem to flow into the next? Is there a little pause? There's no right or wrong here, just continuing to observe. And no matter what our breath seems to feel like, or no matter what the breath feels like right now, the breath is moving. Breath is always changing. Of course, this one breath in does not last forever. We must eventually breathe out, and vice versa. Neither is every inhale breath the same as the inhale breath before. And every breath out, brand new breath out. Sometimes a little shorter, a little longer, quieter or louder or deeper or shallower. Every breath different. And there's continual movement and change within each cycle of breath. The start of that breath in, unlike the middle of the breath in, unlike the end of the breath in. The beginning of each breath out is unlike the middle of that breath out, the end of that breath out. And even our awareness, or what it is that we notice, is continually changing, or how it is that the breath shows up in our body. There's continual movement from the sound of the breath to the sense of breath as it moves in and out through the nostrils. We might notice breath somewhere else in the body, or we might notice breath through the body as a whole. And from time to time, we might even observe that we're no longer aware of the breath at all, and that's okay. We just come back to wherever it is in the body that we notice the breath the most. And just returning to presence with breath. Observing that breath is never the same. Breath is this constant, continual process, always in motion. And from moment to moment to moment, always something new. And so, what does it feel like in the body to sit with that truth? That breath, like everything, is always changing, always moving, forever in process, from moment to moment, brand new. Never truly still, never completely fixed or solid, certainly not permanent, certainly not one thing. And just taking note of what it feels like. Sit with that truth. Observing this movement, continual movement in the breath. and remaining open to whatever mindfulness of breath has to teach you. From moment to moment, this breath is always in motion, forever changing, and always brand new. Maybe taking a few deep, full breaths in and out through the nose. You can blink your eyes open. Whenever you're ready, just bring your awareness back to the space around you. Might feel good to take a little movement in the neck or the shoulders. Stretch the arms up overhead again. Unwind the legs if you've been cross-legged. Just physically and mentally unwind a bit from the meditation. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. So, we're live on Facebook and LinkedIn and on YouTube. My name is Sarah May. And I'm so grateful to see people here from all over the world: California, Brazil, Thailand, New York, Greece. So great to see everyone here: Egypt, France, Turkey, everywhere. If you have any questions about the meditation we just did or about mindfulness or meditation in general, then feel free to post those in the comments at any point. But I did want to talk a little bit about the meditation that we just did, which, really our intention was to use mindfulness of breath to observe the truth of change, that everything, literally everything, things, people, places, circumstances, the breath and the body itself is always in motion and always changing. Yeah, Kelly, thank you. Kelly says, amazing way to start a Monday. Thanks, Kelly, for being here. Um, yeah, everything is always changing. So, we make this really big mistake. We make a really big mistake. And we do it all the time in small ways, and we do it in really big ways. But we make this mistake of thinking that things are solid and they're fixed and they're permanent and they're unchanging. We think this about actual things, objects, right? We think this about other people all the time. We think this about our circumstances. We think this even about our own thoughts or our emotions, right? And when we make that mistake and we think like, this right now is how it's going to be and it's how it's going to be forever, Well, that causes some reaction. Usually, when we make that mistake, it leads to a negative reaction. And in that negative reaction, we really end up hurting ourselves and the people around us. So, mindfulness and meditation, especially as we start to recognize through meditation that things are always moving, always changing. It begins to shift our expectations a little bit. And when things and people and objects and places and circumstances and thoughts and emotions arise, we remember, oh, this is movement. It's movement, and like everything, it's always moving and it's going to move and it's going to change, right? Or if we observe change in our life, we don't get caught off guard, we don't get angry or upset, we don't have a negative reaction. Instead, we remember, oh, it's changing just like everything always changes. So maybe I need to, check my expectations a little bit versus reacting, right, in a bad way. Um, you know, so we make the mistake of thinking, things are solid, things are fixed, things are permanent. Like take, for example, this pen. We're gonna do a little game here. Take, for example, this pen. I think that this pen is always going to function as a pen, that it's permanently a pen, and that's how it will always be. Um, I don't generally think that there's a lot of space in this pen, which there is. There's a ton of space. Like, I think this pen is pretty solid, but there's actually a ton of space in it. There's a lot of extra room and space inside the cap of this pen. There's space inside of the chamber here where the ink is. There's so much space in the little end of this pen. Even, that little thin part in the inside of the pen, there's a lot of space in there. And if I look closely enough at this pen, I'll notice that this pen is made up of little teeny tiny atoms, and there's a lot of space even within all those little teeny tiny atoms, right? Like this pen that I think is solid, and that I can knock against my knuckles. Well, this pen is actually made of a lot of space. Um, and if I were to look closely enough at all those teeny tiny atoms that are making up this pen, well, I would also notice that they're moving. They're constantly moving. And within this pen, yeah, even though, as Jacob says, this is a really good pen, this is one of my favorite pens, right? But within this pen is always changing. It's always changing. Eventually, uh, this pen might run out of ink, right? It's always changing. Even if I never use this pen, the ink is going to eventually dry up because the ink is always changing and the little molecules that make up that ink are always changing. This pen is constantly, interacting with the environment around it. Like this pen doesn't exist separate from anything else, right? This pen is always interacting with, whatever observes it, whatever it comes into contact with. So it's always, ink is changing, its properties are changing, the environment is changing it. Eventually, when the ink in this pen totally dries up and I just leave it somewhere, this pen itself will start cracking, it will break down. It will, as we said, no longer function as a pen, and maybe someday it will no longer even be recognizable as a pen, right? Maybe someday somebody will find the remains of this pen, and they come from a society that doesn't do any handwriting, is only ever typed, right? And they won't know that this pen ever was a pen, right? So at that point, is it a pen, right? If nobody can any longer recognize it as a pen. Is it still a pen, right? So, I'm going on and on and on about this, but I really want to just drive home this point that even these things that we just assume exist in only one way are constantly changing, constantly in motion, constantly interacting with the universe, and are never the same from one moment to the next, to the next, to the next. Um, so, but we make the mistake and we forget, right? So, what happens the day that I go to grab my pen and I try to write something down and it's out of ink? Well, I get pretty angry, right? Especially this is a good pen. This is a really good pen. It was my favorite pen. And when one day it no longer functions for me as a pen, like I have a reaction and I'm upset and I'm angry and I'm mad, right? Well, I'm causing myself a lot of pain by doing that. I might even be causing the people around me a lot of pain if they like hear me complaining, or if I'm mad at them for some reason because they don't have extra pens, or my pen doesn't work anymore, or what have you, right? We all do this in different ways all the time throughout our lives. Like, we make this mistake of thinking things are going to stay the same, and things are never going to stay the same, and things are always changing and always moving. um, you know so think for a moment, where in our lives do we make that mistake, right? Um, I saw a woman the other day in the store screaming at the poor girl at the checkout counter because she went to swipe her card and it didn't work, right? And I heard her say, this card has worked every other time that I've swiped it, right? Well, the little strip on the back of the card, it starts to wear down. Maybe the credit card machine starts to gather a little debris or dust or dirt. Maybe there's something glitch in the computer system that day, right? So here's this woman screaming, upset, super angry, causing herself a lot of stress, causing a lot of stress to all the people around her because she made that mistake of expecting that things are going to always be the same, right? That everything is permanent and solid and fixed, and that it's just going to be the same. So where in our lives do we make that mistake? With people, right? Hey, you've changed, right? Where do we make that mistake with people? Where do we make that mistake with other objects? Where do we make that mistake with our circumstances? Getting really, really, really upset about circumstances that are going to change. We waste a lot of energy, and we cause a lot of suffering when we forget that everything is part of this grand process of movement and motion and change. So, through these types of meditations, mindfulness meditations, and just by observing that the true nature of all things is to change, to be in motion, you know, um, we can kind of learn to relax a little bit when we observe change, whether unexpected or not, in the world around us. Um, Yeah, Jacob says, I'm thinking about stability. What factors would cause phenomenon to change sensitivity? Pen will exist until influence, life cycles, we people we believe we know, right? And then we say, oh, you've changed, right? Well, have they? Maybe people change all the time, right? We all, you know, used to be little teeny tiny babies, and we're not anymore. And we used to like red used to be our favorite color, and it's not anymore. We grow out of things and we grow and we have new experiences and we expand and we change and we learn, and we do this all the time. You know, maybe the person in question has not changed, but our perception of them has changed, or maybe we've gotten to know them a little better, right? Maybe we had a particular judgment. How many times, where in your life do you have a best friend or a loved one who was once a stranger or a challenging person for you? Or where in your life can you point to a best friend or a loved one who is now a stranger or now someone you have a lot of challenge or conflict with, right? So our relationship to people is always changing too, right? Our perception of the world around us is always changing. Um, so again, these meditations where we just observe the natural cycle of things and the fact um, that things are changing all the time, whether we happen to be mindful of that or not. If we get more mindful of it, we can move through this world with a lot more ease and a lot more stress, which really is the goal of meditation, isn't it? Yeah, and every breath is new, right? The joy of change, and we've said this before. We did a meditation a while back, I think, on the joy of uncertainty, which is real similar concept. But change we usually think of as something negative, right? Like, oh God, things are changing, we don't want anything to change. But there's also a lot of joy in change, right? Thank God things are always changing. It means that we're never locked in, right? So it's like this, but it's like this right now. It's like this right now. And in another moment, it could be different. And what a gift, right? What a gift that things are always changing. Um, so that's something to pay attention to, right? When you observe this truth in meditation, you notice that there's continual movement and you notice that things are always changing and the breath is coming in and out, right? Does that cyclical awareness of the natural cycle of things, does it make you a little queasy? Does it make you a little nervous? Does it make you feel ungrounded? These are all things to really pay attention to, and there's no right or wrong, but it's all really good information. Observe your relationship to the truth of change, right? Um, for some people, the truth of change is really exciting and just full of potential because if things could change for the better in any moment, right? For other people, the truth of change is terrifying. And we can think that the truth of change feels terrifying in this moment, and that can change too. And maybe in the next moment, we're relieved by change, right? We've all had, I think, that experience where, we've gone through some change in our lives that at first felt really scary and really challenging, and there was a lot of fear. But we went through the process and we were able to stay present with it. And looking back, we might even go, whoa, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Although at the time, I was really terrified and I was really resistant to that change, but look what happened when I decided to go with the flow. A whole new world opened up and I feel great, right? So, hopefully we've all had that experience on at least a small level, right? Yeah, the beauty of mindfulness and meditation is that it offers us a window into new perspectives, right? We can always look at things from a different point of view and just try it on, right? And sometimes just trying on a new point of view, it doesn't change our minds, but it at least helps us realize, oh, like I'm seeing this from a particular point of view, and this is the one I've chosen, and it might not be the only point of view, right? Right. Yeah. So, yeah, space for potential, the spaciousness, right? The spaciousness that's inside of this pen, it can, when we've got all this open space and we recognize this open space, that too can be really scary for some people. Or we can realize the fullness of space in that, you know, space is full of infinite potential, right? From this space, anything can arise. And what a wonderful gift that is, right? So, the meditation that we've did today, if you'd like to practice it at home, which I definitely recommend you do, the guided meditations are wonderful, but practicing on your own is wonderful too. We always like to balance the both a little bit, even though practicing on your own might not always feel easy. But if you wanted to do this meditation on your own, awareness of the truth of change, we could call it. Just begin by taking a little time to get grounded. Feel into your connection to your seat, to your space, to your body, to your breath, right? Because when we're working with these meditations, observing movement, observing change, we do want to come at it from a space of feeling like, okay, I'm stable and I'm going to observe this change in this movement, but I feel safe, right? So we want to spend a little bit of time really connecting to that sense of safety. And I'm grounded and I'm connected to my seat, to the earth, to my body, to my breath. And then we just observe the breath, right? We just observe the breath and notice that there's this continual movement to the breath. That breath is cyclical. There's an in, there's an out. Some of us might observe there's like in breath, pause, out breath, pause, in breath, pause, out breath, pause. Some of us might observe it as just a flow of like the inhale flowing into the exhale and the exhale flowing into the inhale, right? There's no right or wrong, but no matter what, our breath is part of this cycle that we can tune into and observe, right? And we can work with that on many, many different levels, right? Uh, you know, change from in breath to out breath, change from the start of the inhale towards the end of the inhale, change from the start of the exhale towards the end of the exhale, right? This one inhale is not exactly like the inhale that came before it. This is not exactly like the inhale before that, or 5 inhale breaths before that, right? Every inhale brand new. Same with the exhale breath. This one complete cycle of in and out is totally different from the last cycle of in and out, right? We can really get into the details. Do I feel this breath differently as it moves through my nose? Do I feel each breath differently as it moves through my chest? In what ways do we observe the breath? And how does that observation change? Say we're working with breath, overall sensation of breath through the overall body, right? Is it an overall up and down? Is it an overall expansion, contraction from front to back, from side to side, right? That could all change too, right? Even if we're just saying, I'm only going to observe breath as it's felt through the body as a whole, right? So, whatever angle we take, we're going to observe movement. We're going to observe change. We're going to observe this idea of breath as process. And, we didn't do this today, but we can even go, you know, we can even get into like, oh, I think that the breath is solid. I think that the breath is one thing. I think that breath is just breath. Well, let me try to find the breath, right? Can I find the exact point where the inhale breath begins? Can I find the exact point where the exhale breath ends? Can I really narrow in to the one moment in time when I switch from breath out to breath in, or breath in to breath out, And I think that if that was the focus of your meditation, you might find that it's very, very difficult to tune in to that exact moment, right? Um, Everything's in motion, everything is changing, you know. So we just observe. We observe in meditation, and then hopefully, by really connecting to that truth in meditation, and also maybe giving ourselves some space to kind of notice our reaction to that truth, right? Does it feel fearful? Is there some kind of anxiety arising? Is there some kind of attempt to like prevent change, push change away? Keep this moment as it is. Attachment, is there any of that, like attachment or aversion present? Maybe we notice it feels really joyful. It feels really good to notice and sit with the truth of change. But spending some time just noticing, what does it feel to sit with this truth? That's really worthwhile too. Because as you guys all know, we don't do this to get really, really good at meditation, right? You guys all know, like, this practice is to help us navigate life with a little more ease, a little more kindness, a little more joy, a lot less stress, a lot less pain, a lot less suffering. And if we were to remember in life, off the meditation cushion, from moment to moment to moment, as we move through our day, if we were to really remember everything is moving, everything is changing, everything is just this energy that's arising, that's lasting for a while and then dissipating. It's part of the cyclical process. What would it be like to move through our lives remembering that truth all the time? All the time, right? I think that we would find that our expectations would change a little bit. And, when we went to turn on our computer and that one day the computer just didn't turn on, we would go, oh, there it is again, change. Why would I expect that every single day when I go to my computer and press the power button, it would just turn on, right? Everything is always changing, and we might not get so upset, right? And we might not throw a fit or have such a bad day, or make everyone around us miserable because we could just laugh it off as the truth of change. That's just how it is. It's just how it is. So I think, you know hopefully these meditations can help us find a little more lightness in daily life, a little more humor even in daily life. Um, you know, by breaking down our sense of everything as just solid and permanent and fixed. What if we applied this to like our thoughts or our emotions, right? Well, we might not like attach so strongly to every single thing that we think. You know, we might not beat ourselves up so much for certain thoughts. We might not fight so hard to block certain thoughts, right? What if instead we just went, ugh, that's stuck in my head right now, but it's going to change? You know, what if we did that instead? What if instead of like really letting an emotion totally overwhelm us and take us down, we went, oh, that emotion is just movement of energy. And it's like this right now. And it doesn't feel very comfortable, but it's going to change. I remember that it's going to change. Um, so these meditations are really, really practical and hope really can help us live our life with a lot more ease. But it takes practice, right? This remembering that everything is like process, everything is changing, everything is movement. It's not easy to remember that, right? We forget all the time. And so perhaps by spending a little bit of time each day in mindful meditation, just observing, the breath is moving in, the breath is moving out, you know, the breath is changing. This body is changing. Even the way in which I notice the breath is changing. That process, that practice, that formal meditation can really do wonders to help us become far more comfortable with the idea of continual movement, the idea of continual change. Um, and it makes us far more likely to remember the truth of change when we observe change out there in the real world, so to speak, and it takes us by surprise, right? um, you know People change, right? uh, Objects are always moving, always changing. Circumstances change, thoughts change, emotions change. Every single thing that we can observe in this world is built out of energy, and that energy has movement, and that energy is changing. And we get into a lot of trouble when we expect that energy to stay exactly as it is, right? And we either it changes and it moves and we fight against that because we don't like it or it caught us by surprise, or um, we just attach to the idea. We do this especially of people. I'm going to attach to my idea of you, and I'm going to fix you with a singular identity, and that's all you get. And when you act outside of that solid fixed identity that I've given you, I'm going to get mad, or I'm going to get upset, or I'm going to react, or I'm going to say, you've changed, right? So we do this all the time. We do this all the time. So again, please, practice this meditation at home. Just sit in a quiet place, let yourself be free from distraction. Um, Get stable, get grounded, and just observe the breath. And observe that, breath is moving, breath is changing, and breath is not unique in that way. Breath is actually teaching you, showing you, demonstrating to you that this is how everything operates. Everything operates with movements, with change, you know, with these kinds of cycles of coming in and out of existence, of awareness, of, strength. So we just observe, become a little more mindful of breath and a little more mindful of the true nature of breath. And part of breath's true nature is that it's moving and that it's changing. And if we can be mindful of that in a formal meditation, then hopefully we can remember that truth outside of meditation and be mindful of the truth of change, for greater ease in day to day life. So, thank you guys so much for your presence here today in this meditation. If you happen to miss it, you can always go back to the beginning of this video. This video will be saved for you on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. You can practice this 20-minute meditation on the truth of change again and again. You can practice it on your own. It's super simple. Just get grounded, get stable, observe the breath, and observe how the breath is continually cycling, moving, changing. And that's it. And then maybe observe your reaction to that change as well, right? And that's it. So you can set a timer, or you can just sit there and work on that mindfulness of, you know, continually moving, continually changing breath for as long as it feels good, right? And just see what you notice. So thank you everyone for being here. Your presence is really what makes these live online meditations so great. But we're here every single Monday at this same time, 8 a.m. Pacific time in the US, and you can find your own time zone from there. And visit mindfulnessexercises.com to find hundreds and hundreds more free audio meditations on breath, mindfulness of breath, mindfulness of change, mindfulness of impermanence. You can search all of those terms, mindfulness of movement, right? There's also guided meditation scripts, so you can use the scripts to teach yourself or to teach others. Um, and there is a phone number in the description for this video, and you can always text meditation to that phone number if you're in the US, and get some daily tips about mindfulness and meditation as well. So thank you guys. My name is Sarah May, and I hope to see you here next week. And I really hope that today's session was of benefit to you, because, all things are changing. And when we embrace that truth, our lives are far more easy, right? So it's up to us to stop making things so complicated, to stop taking things so seriously, and to stop solidifying everything into these, non-changing, fixed, um, separate things, whatever we want to call that, right? So thank you guys so much. And I hope to see you next week or on a future meditation. And I hope that it's of benefit to you. To continually remember throughout the day mindfulness of the truth of change. All right, thank you. Be well.